In today's tutorial, we are exploring wet into wet watercolor painting. We'll use this technique specifically as we paint some fruits and vegetables. Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell. If you're new here, this channel is all about arts, watercolor, bullet journaling, and more, so consider subscribing. And in today's tutorial, we're going to use painting fruits and vegetables as sort of an excuse to practice our wet into wet watercolor technique. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. We're going to get into all of that in the tutorial, but this is just a fun and frivolous practice piece, but I think it's going to create something really pretty as well. So let's get started. For supplies today, I am using Canson hot pressed watercolor paper. I would recommend using any sort of texture for this exercise, cold pressed, rough, it doesn't matter. For brushes, I have my synthetic round number 6 and number 8, but I also have some larger brushes here. I've got a mop brush and a flat brush, and I'm trying to be a good artist and use the larger brushes when it's the right time to use a larger brush, like laying down large washes of water. And then I have 2 glasses of clean water, and I'm using my Sakura watercolor disc set. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is mix up some red and some green, because the first vegetable I want to paint is a radish. So I kind of want to have my colors ready to go. So mixing up a nice cherry red for this radish, and then kind of a cooler, more muted green. So because I'm practicing my wet into wet watercolors today, the first thing I'm going to do is take a clear bit of water on my brush, and I'm painting the shape of the radish. I'm trying to put a little bit of red in it there. I know you can't see, but there is this puddle on the page, and then when I hit it with that red paint, the paint seeps out really naturally and beautifully into that puddle that I initially created. And especially for painting organic things like vegetables and fruits, it's really wonderful to let the paint and the pigment seep out into that water, into that shape that you initially created, and you just get this really beautiful look and this really wonderful and natural variation of color. So my radish, which is dark red at the top and white at the bottom, I'm able to achieve that almost without trying by just simply putting the most pigment at the top of the radish and then letting it flow down and sort of guiding the pigment down to the bottom. And then I'm adding these little tendrils, and you can use a dry brush to sop up any excess paint or pigment. And then I'm going to just put some leaves on top here. And actually I need to maybe switch my brush. This will be a good example of a time when I'm using a small brush and I really should use a larger brush. But anyways, I'm just doing these big floppy leaves. I'm not painting really precise vegetables today. I'm just practicing. I want to get the general shape and color right. But more than that, I want to use these fruits and vegetables as an excuse to get comfortable with the wet into wet watercolor technique and really see what wet into wet can do. And I just want to take a sec to say thank you to Warby Parker for sponsoring our video today. Warby Parker has a free home try-on program, so you get to order 5 pairs of glasses and try them on at home for 5 days. Shipping is free, there's no obligation to buy, and you've got 5 days with them. So I was able to, try the different pairs on with my outfits, figure out which ones really went with my wardrobe, decide which pair really defines me as a person, and then at the end of the 5 days, you can send them back with the prepaid return label. Glasses start at $95, including prescription lenses, and the lenses include anti-glare and anti-scratch coatings. And for every pair that you buy, a pair is distributed to someone in need. Now, as you guys saw, I ordered the at-home try-on kit, tried on my 5 pairs of glasses, and by the time I shot the video, I pretty much had it narrowed down to 3 pairs. So let me know which one was your favorite. Was it the tortoiseshell Percy, the beigey colored Tainsley, or for the last pair, the Rose Crystal Eugene? Comment below and let me know. And after today's video, head to warbyparker.com/Shayda. Use my link to order your own at-home try-on kit. If you have an iPhone, make sure to download Warby Parker's app where you can use their brand new feature, Find Your Fit. Find Your Fit uses the iPhone's True Depth camera to map and measure your key facial features. And then using the measurement, Find Your Fit recommends a bunch of different frames that are likely to fit your face. Head to warbyparker.com/Shayda to order your free at-home try-on kit. So the beet and the radish were quite similar. So now we're going to paint a carrot, and I've got my clear water with just a hint of orange in it so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm laying my wet area onto the page, so painting the shape of the carrot just using water. And then once I'm happy with that puddle wet area and the shape of it, I'll take that orange pigment and start from the top and start adding lots of pigment and color. I didn't have quite enough water, I realized right away, so I'm adding more water there as I go, and I'm doing a lot of horizontal painting strokes, and by painting horizontally and using these strokes, I'm able to sort of get the look and texture of the carrot. But because I'm using that wet into wet technique, everything is very faded and organic. All the lines are very fuzzy, and I just think it gives that wonderful look of the actual vegetable. And at the bottom here, I'm going to do some roots and tendrils and just sort of draw that orange paint out onto the page, just keeping everything very delicate. And then as I go along, I can add more color. So I'm adding a bit of brown, I'm adding darker orange to give that carrot more texture and also the look of dirt and shading. And finally, at the end, before anything gets too dry, I want to add just some green sprigs at the top, and I'll add a little bit of that green color at the bottom as well. With 3 vegetables down, I decided to change my water because I want to paint a lemon. So I've got some nice clean water. I'm laying down the shape of the lemon in water with just a hint of yellow, and now I'll go in with that beautiful yellow pigment. And I've begun painting on the sides of the lemon because I want there to be a highlight right in the middle. So you always want to think about where the pretend light is hitting your item. On the carrot, I made the light coming from the left, so the right-hand side of the carrot is darker. And on the lemon, I want a highlight sort of hitting it right in the middle. Now I'm also using a bit of darker green and orange and dark yellow to add some spotting on the lemon, and because the spotting will naturally bleed out into that wet area, and it gives me that natural bumpy texture of the lemon skin. I'll also use my dry brush to get rid of a little bit of pigment and help those highlights out. Moving on, I'm going to paint a pear, so I'm starting with my big mop brush and laying down that puddle wet area in just a very, very light shade of green. And then I'm taking my smaller brush here and adding lots of green. Again, like the lemon, I'm thinking about where's the highlight on this pear. And also with the pear, we're gonna take things a step further and we're gonna add a second color, and we haven't done that yet. So far, we've just been working pretty much with one color. I added a little lime green to the lemon, but it was still very much within the yellow shade. So here I've got a bit of a highlight on the top of the pear. I'm just moving that green paint around, trying to let it do its own thing, but also trying to guide it into the wet area a little. And then when I'm ready, I'm adding this wonderful blush pink, like very, very, very diluted red, very, very light and watery. And I'll just let it sort of seep into the puddle, just like everything else. And the result is that wonderful and very natural fruit-like coloring and look. Now the very last thing we're going to paint today is a mango, and this one we're going to try to do 3 colors all together. So obviously I'm using the wash brush to lay down that puddle of color, and then I start with red on the bottom. I'm letting the red paint seep out into the puddle, but also trying to guide it a little bit. I'm adding more pigment, and you can see it really moves, which is so cool, and that's exactly how you get that really natural look of the fruit coloring, as I've already said. So I'm just trying to guide it a little bit there, and then I'm adding green on the other side, and I definitely need some more color here. It's a little too light as I begin, but I'm adding more and more, and just sort of, again, trying to guide it. The mango got a little crazy. This is definitely a practice piece for me as well. I've got way too much water, so I'm trying to mop some of it up, and then I still want to sort of move the color around that's already there, and adding more pigment because it's still way too light right now, and there's way too much white space or negative space. Okay, so you can see things are moving along here. I want to add that nice yellow, that ripe yellow color in between the red and the green. And then I still sort of have a little too much negative space. There wouldn't be any white color on a mango. So I'm adding a bit more red, and I want to sort of move all the paints together. And at a certain point, I sort of realized that trying to push them together with the brush just isn't working well. The brush is sopping up a lot of the color. So what I did is I picked up the page and moved it around, and you can actually, guide the paints with gravity, and that's really fun. And it kind of was the perfect thing for this mango. Yeah, it was a little out of control, and there's a lot of water there, but there's also a lot of pigment, and I think moving it this way, it was first of all, it was fun, and it worked quite well. Okay, so that is the wet into wet fruit and vegetable practice. You could totally leave your fruits and veggies like that, but the last step that I wanted to show is that once you've practiced your wet into wet technique, you could come back in once everything is dry, which it is now for me, and you can add a little bit more pigment to do some shading like I'm doing here on the carrot. And this would be your wet on dry. So you wait for everything to dry and then you go back in and add more detail. So this time you would have a little more control, or with this step you give yourself some more control. Now I'm just going to do this on the carrot, and then I might add a little veining on the leaves, but I just wanted to say, it's not like it's one technique or the other. You can totally employ both on the same piece, but for me, I'm just gonna leave it at that because today this was all about practicing my wet into wet watercolors, and I think the result was really, at least it was fun, if not successful. Well, thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this bonus tutorial, and I will see you Friday with another video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.